Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Parallax Abstraction, and welcome to another episode of Retro Flashback, showcasing gaming's roots for a new generation. So yeah, we are doing another Double Dragon game. I just couldn't resist. It occurred to me after I did my Double Dragon 2 video, and after Styles XP and I finished that god-awful Double Dragon 2 update, remake, demake for Xbox Live Arcade, that I had actually never touched Double Dragon 3. I discovered this because there's actually a little history screen in the Double Dragon 2 XBLA game that talks about the history of the series, and it discusses Double Dragon 3, and I was like, oh man, that's right, there totally was a third one of these back in the day. So we're doing another little double feature here again today, actually. We are going to be looking at the arcade version, which we've got up right now, and we're going to also be looking at the NES version, which is once again very, very different from the arcade version. And yeah, I have actually not put a lot of time into these. I just tried them both out to get a little impression, and yeah, well, turns out these games were not very well received back in the day, and oh boy, can I tell you why. So, let's start this off. It should be noted here that Double Dragon 3, the arcade version at least, while published and released by Technos Japan, was actually not developed by them. This is developed uncredited, I believe, by a company called East Technology, who I've never heard of. I don't know how many games they did. They don't even have a Wikipedia page, so I'm going to guess they're not very significant. So, I'm going to start this off right here, and you're going to notice a couple things right off the bat. Number one, there's no score. That number above my head, that's my health. And yeah, kind of interesting, isn't it? So there's no score whatsoever in this game, which is quite a bit different, especially for an arcade game. For home games, not so much, but for arcade games, that's very unusual. It should also be noted that we are looking at the US arcade release of Double Dragon 3. There are actually significant differences with the Japanese version. The Japanese version actually allows you to select multiple characters, whereas this game just picks one of the two Lee brothers, depending on whether you're player 1 or player 2. There was also a 3-player option in the Japanese version, which I believe is absent from the US release. And, well, we'll get to the animation and whatnot afterwards, but here's the first thing I want to show you. This is friggin' crazy. This came out in 1990, and it's basically one of the earliest versions I can think of microtransactions in games. No, for real. See where it said I only need 1 coin to buy some of this stuff? Yeah, by 1 coin, they mean coins. Not as in coins you pick up from stuff that you find on the ground or from killing enemies. They mean put in money and buy power. For real. Or buy moves. Or buy extra lives. Or buy power-ups, or what have you. You see there? I walked in there, I was almost dead, and now I came out and I got more energy. You can seriously buy power in this game. That is kind of amazing that they figured that out back in this day, and it's also really friggin' gross. Really gross. Ugh. That's... yeah! God, that's terrible. I hate it now, and I think it's even worse, kind of, back in this era. At least we kind of expect it now with some games, but ugh. Alright, so let's go in front of the power records. Yeah, the power records. Right. Can I bash it? No, I can't. So, yeah, very mechanically different right there. The next thing you're going to see is that technologically this game is quite a bit different. It runs on a different platform. And, well, here's the first thing you're noticing. Look at that animation. It's weird, right? Because the game scrolls at 60 frames a second. When you hit an enemy and he goes flying, that's at 60 frames a second. And as best as I've been able to tell from my limited plays with this game thus far, there's actually none of the slowdown that completely plagued and many would say ruined the first 2 Double Dragon games. Like, it's very solid. But... And it's weird, right? Like, look at how horrible the walking is. It's like they have 2 frames of walking animation, especially when you're changing direction and stuff. Like, look how stuttery and gross that is. But then look at the combat animation. Look at how many frames are in this kick. Look at how many frames are in this punch. Like, compared to the original Double Dragon games, like, that's a noted improvement, right? Like, it's very, very significant. The jump animation is very smooth. Like, it's almost like they ran out of time, and they spent all this time doing all these great combat animations, but they just forgot everything else. Like, they forgot the basic walking, because they're like, well, you're fighting most of the time anyway, so, you know, really, who gives a crap about what the walking around looks like? And it's so weird. It's janky, but janky in a really screwed up kind of way. Like, it's only half janky, kind of? Like, I don't even know how you describe it. It's the weirdest friggin' thing. I've never really seen anything like it before. In any game. It's so weird. But your basic combat mechanics are kind of similar. This game feels a lot less fair and definitely a lot more janky than the previous two games. I mean, the previous two games were hard in a kind of plays dirty and cheap kind of way. But this one's definitely worse, mostly because it's actually not demonstrating it here, but it happened on my earlier playthrough, which was that frequently you'll run into a situation where if an enemy gets you down, it basically won't let you get up. Like, it will come over to you, you'll get up, it'll hit you, or it'll do something like that where it just breaks your guard for no reason, and you'll just kind of get stun-locked in a loop that you can't get out of, and you can't get up, and you're just kind of like, well, this is just crap and exploitive. But the thing is, I have no doubt that that's pretty much intentional. I mean, this game has bloody microtransactions in it, for God's sakes. I mean, they're not even really microtransactions because you're not paying less to buy those little power items we saw at the beginning. You're just paying more in general. Like, you're just paying multiple credits. And it should be noted that the Japanese version doesn't have any of that microtransaction stuff to begin with. All the extra moves and all that stuff are unlocked from the beginning. And, of course, here's the guy who briefed you, and they're just like, hey, you killed these guys, so I'm just going to come in and tell you to
China.
To go to China. And this is the thing. There's even, like, voiceover in this game, and which is pretty impressive at the time, and it's a pretty high bit rate, actually, when you think about it. But it sounds like it was, you know, one of the localization developers who just was like, you really want me to record this? Really? Okay, fine. And just talked in the most deadpan way into a microphone. It's just... Oh, man, this game is so weird. It's so weird. I mean, Technos came off of two big successes with the first two Double Dragon games, and then I don't know if they just got arrogant or... So there's an example of the stun locking, and now I ran out of that, so there's only one life, right? So you want to keep going? Feed me money. More money, more energy. So it's really, really strange. Like, they came off of this big high with the first two Double Dragon games, and I don't know if they got arrogant or what, but they outsourced this game to a third-party company. It's extremely different from the other ones that came before it. It looks better in some ways. It sounds better. The frame rate is much more consistent. It feels, in that regard, technologically polished from the back end. But then you have this horrible, horrible, inconsistent animation system. You have these really cheap enemies. And you may have also noticed that I'm pretty much exclusively using the kick. And that's because the punch is kind of useless. You have much greater range with the kick. And the punches, I find, can be much more easily broken out of by the enemies, as you can see right there, than the kicks can. The kicks pretty much can't be blocked, whereas the punches are almost universally blocked, so there's really no benefit to punching, and especially since the game doesn't keep score. Like, it's not even as if you're getting more points for punching. You just... I don't know. This is just the weirdest thing. Like, this feels so incredibly different from the other Double Dragon games, and it made improvements in some areas where the games really needed improvement. But where it detracts is just so bad. And this just doesn't feel like a proper Double Dragon game at all. And I don't know, they really improve things in some ways, but in other ways it really feels like this was an arrogant cash-in on Technos' part. And This game wasn't very well received at the time, and I can definitely see why, especially with the really exploitive monetization model where they're just like, hey, you know, pay a credit to play and pay again to basically make the game some semblance of fair, because just playing vanilla when you don't buy any power-ups or anything like that, this game is just, it's just unfair and dickish. I mean, look at the way this boss is acting. It's terrible. Yeah, I don't know. I do not care for this at all. I mean, I came into this relatively blind because I thought that would kind of be a fun thing to do, and man, my impressions are not good. If I was playing this in the arcade for the first time, I'd probably be walking away from this and towards another machine at this point. This is pretty terrible. But I said you're getting a double feature, and you most certainly are, because not unlike Double Dragon 2, the NES and arcade versions of this title are very, very different from each other. And while this one was actually outsourced, the NES game was developed by Technos. So, next up, we are going to switch over to that once again, and I'm going to show you the differences between that and this one, because they're pretty significant and noteworthy, to put it mildly. So, hang tight for 2 seconds, and we'll be right back. And welcome back, everybody. So, here we are with the NES version of Double Dragon 3, which, as you can see there, is actually developed, or rather produced, by Technos. So, this is interesting in its own way, and unfortunately, man, I am really learning that this series just isn't as good as I historically thought it was. I still really like the NES version of Double Dragon 2, but it doesn't seem they learned much from that either. This is quite a bit different from the arcade game, but in a lot of the same ways, it's also not all that great. So, I'm going to show you what I'm talking about here. So, much like the NES version of Double Dragon 2, which I actually didn't address this point in my other video. So in the arcade version of Double Dragon 2, Marion, the girl you rescue from the first game, actually gets killed, and that's why the game is called The Revenge, because you're avenging her death, or revenging her death, as it were. And in the NES game, she actually isn't killed. I believe you're trying to rescue her again. And they sort of continue that mythos, if you will, in this one. She's still not dead. So, we have a little bit of backstory here. This game uses the same tech as Double Dragon 2 on the NES, so it's still got a couple of things. So you see Marion is actually still alive, but now she's vanished. And you see it still has that little piece of jank there where the music stutters in between each of these frames. So here's the little weird person who gave you your briefing in the arcade game. So this is where the plot is very similar. You still have to get the 3 sacred stones. They're called the Rosetta Stones in the arcade game. Still broken up into missions by country. So this probably looks pretty familiar, doesn't it? Yeah, this is pretty much the system from Double Dragon 2. Runs very similar, runs at a lower frame rate, 30 frames a second. A lot of the same sound effects. You'll hear the sound assets are a little bit different. Whoops. Yes, and this is something else that we'll show you after, actually. So, except how do I get out of here? Oh dear. I've caused a... That was weird. Okay. Anyway, yeah, so you'll see that the... Listen! I tried to stop them all, but they were too powerful. So there's actually a little bit of dialogue in this one. Oh, he's dead. So we gotta kill some more guys. So, you saw that screen that came up there, and this is one of the interesting things, is that you can actually, as you progress in this game, actually switch between characters, and I guess weapons as well. I thought it was just characters. But you actually have the ability to switch between things. Even though this is can be a 2-player game, you have that ability to switch stuff up, which is kind of interesting and different. So, They're definitely mixing up the concepts a little bit, which is what they try to do with this series, and that's kind of cool. So here we are, we're back out here. So but you see, we got the cheap stun lock going on here again. That was less common in Double Dragon 2 on the NES. It was pretty easy to get out of that, but it's definitely more common here. This game definitely plays cheaper. Now, one thing that you're going to notice here is that one of the weird things about Double Dragon 2 on the NES that I referenced is the fact that, and I kind of liked it once you got used to it, but was the fact that you punched, when you hit the punch button, you punched in the direction you were facing, but you kicked in the opposite direction, which I thought was actually kind of good at the time because it was useful for crowd control situations. It was useful for getting enemies sort of off your back. And in this game, they undid that, and they set you up so that you punch and kick in the same direction. And you also saw there that the animations are generally higher quality. There are more frames of animation in this. So unlike in Double Dragon 3 for the arcade, where they actually took frames of animation out versus the previous ones, in this one they actually added some in. But you're also going to see something that's really friggin' terrible there, which is that I had 1 life. Yeah. So this game, also like the arcade game and unlike the NES game of its predecessor, has no scoring system. So there is no score, there is no high score, which I'm not really a fan of, I have to say. But as far as I can tell, there's also no extra lives, which is brutal. I mean, you saw that I got out there, and in that first encounter, basically, I was getting, I kind of got screwed, and I got killed, and, well, that's where things ended. That sucks! Like, in the arcade game, you can feed quarters in, at least, to keep going, but in this game, you're screwed, and as you can see, it's brutal and mean and unfair, and does this cheap stun lock thing, the same thing that the arcade game does. And the one thing I liked about the Double Dragon games on the NES versus the arcade was that because they knew they were for home systems, they took out some of the real cheap nonsense. And, well, as you can see, they haven't done that here at all. And I don't even know if you can, like, if I manage to get my way through this mission, I don't even know if I can continue. Like, if I finish a level, I don't know if I die, if I can just continue from that point on, or if this game actually tries to make you restart the whole bloody thing every time you die. I can't imagine it would be that unbelievably cruel, but yeah, I don't know, because there isn't even a and now I'm stuck in this player select screen again. I don't know how to get out of here. This is the weirdest friggin' thing. And yeah, I don't even know how to... This is really weird. Oh, I see. You have to do it when that thing is picked, because... Alright, sure. Let's see if we can pick... Okay, well, I can start with nunchucks enabled at least. Oh, but they're limited use. Oh, God, that's even worse. And they don't really seem to do that much more damage. So yeah, it's weird. Like, they almost tried to work in what feels like light RPG elements into this game, I guess, which is just the weirdest bloody thing. And yeah, like, this game has no save system, so even if it does let you to continue after the level ends, I mean, I can only imagine how hard this must get on later levels. And yeah, you gotta keep your NES on, and you gotta play through it. So, I don't like that. I don't like that design at all. Like, challenge is one thing, but this game is incredibly cheap. It's unfair, and limiting you to 1 life, like in the home version, is just like, I think that's kind of a cheap thing to do, even in the arcade game, and in the home game, that's just inexcusable. I mean, yeah, I mean, I dare say, Technos is gone, and I generally really like their work. And I don't like to, I don't want to spit on their grave or nothing, but this game in sort of all its forms, both in the arcade and on home platforms with the way it's designed, just feels kind of arrogant to me. It kind of feels like they had early success with Double Dragon and that they just kind of got on their high horse and were sort of like, yeah, we're going to make these really punishing, exploitive games, and you're going to play them and you're going to like them because we're Technos. And we made Double Dragon, and you'll play these no matter how bad their ideas are because they're Double Dragon. And that's a crappy attitude, man. And I just... oof. Like, Double Dragon 1 is alright. It definitely doesn't hold up very well. I thought Double Dragon 2 actually was still really, really good, and I still really enjoyed it. But this is just not good. The arcade game is badly made, and it's so weird because it's so much better in some ways, but worse in the places it really counts the most. And this NES game is just it's not good in pretty much all the ways. Like, the one thing I'll give them credit for is it looks a little nicer. The animation is better, to be sure, and the music is much better. The music doesn't quite have the bombacity of Double Dragon 1 on the NES, but it also doesn't have the muted feel of Double Dragon 2. It's kind of somewhere in the middle, which is kind of cool. I really like that, but oh my god, yeah, it totally made me start over again, even from that point. That is absolute ass. It's just, ooh. Yeah, this is not a good game. Neither of these are good games. Like, your memory is definitely best served with Double Dragon 2 on the NES, which I think is the best. And then, yeah, even Double Dragon 1, absolutely legions ahead of this game. I dare say I'd almost play the arcade version over this, because at least you can credit feed your way through that one. But this one is just... yeah. This is just arrogant and poorly made and a disservice to fans of the series, if I must be honest with you. And I'm really a big Technos fan, but ball was dropped big time with this one, man. So yeah, that is Double Dragon 3, published in arcades by Technos Japan and developed by East Technology, and developed by Technos Japan on the NES, may they rest in peace, and published by Acclaim on the NES, may they rest, I guess. And I guess may East Technology rest as well, because I'm pretty sure they're no longer with us, and I really don't know. I don't know. I'd never heard of them before today, so who knows if they even made anything else beyond this. But there are better Double Dragons, without a doubt. And that this was the last one in the series before that weird, kind of unrelated fighting game or on the Neo Geo probably says a lot. My name's been Parallax Abstraction. Thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you next time.